All right, folks, welcome back. This is Yankees Unloaded. I'm Jake Ellenbogen. He is Gary Sheffield Jr. And if you're watching this, well, the Yankees are 4 wins away from going to the World Series. That would be the first time since 2009. We're going to talk about what got them there, how they won tonight's game against the Kansas City Royals, a game they had to have, Game 4, and who they might face in the ALCS, potentially the World Series if we get that far in our conversations.
We better.
And why Aaron Boone might have just managed the series of his life. That was one of the best managing jobs that I've seen. So we'll get into all that and more. Before we do, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Check us out on our Discord channel. The link is in the description below. If you'd like to join and become a member of the channel, you can do that. Link is in the description below, as well as there's a button below. But Gary, I mean, look, you and I both felt like Gerrit Cole was going to be very, very good in the start. I understand maybe he didn't have the strikeouts people would want, and it didn't look as dominant because he did give up some hard contact and had a ball die right at the wall. But this is a really, really good performance from Gerrit Cole. You will take this all day, every day. And he redeemed himself against Waka. So what were your thoughts on the game?
I think it's interesting because when we watch Gerrit Cole, and he has a bad start, there was that start he had earlier this year against Boston, and the sky is just falling. We'll never trust this guy again in a big game. And I'll tell you, we need to be consistent with this player. Gerrit Cole is paid a lot of money to pitch big games, and he's not just going to pitch one of them. It's going to be a lot. If the Yankees are playing in big games, 45 is going to be a big part of those games, and he delivered today. I frankly don't care about strikeouts. I just don't. I understand that technically it takes the element of luck out of the equation when you are striking guys out, and that's a good thing. But his job is to get outs. That is a more old school mentality. He went deep into the game. He gave us 7 full, 4 Ks, didn't walk anybody, which goes to show you had his control. That's what really matters. If you can control inside the strike zone, you're going to dominate. It's exactly what he did. And he did just enough where our offense could pick him up. And that's all we ask for, right? That's an ace. You don't have to go out and be Sandy Koufax every time. You need to go out there, give us length, get outs, and put us in position to win big games. It's exactly what happened. And frankly, if you wanted better than this, if you wanted 8, if you wanted a complete game, CC Sabathia-esque, well, I'm here to tell you right now, when we say that this offense is, what did we say they were, Jake? Number 2 overall in baseball. Well, when you come out there and you give this performance, you don't need to be CC Sabathia. You can be this, and that will be enough. All the Yankees have to do from this point forward is be enough. They don't have to be the 98 Yankees. They don't have to go out there and be Andy Pettitte. You need to be better than who's on the field across from you. It's exactly what they did today. They got to Michael Wacha. Wasn't a ton, but he didn't go length at all. 4 2/3, 2 earned runs, 6 hits. They made nice adjustments to that changeup. He's got a really good one. The Yankees did just enough when it really mattered most, and that's where a lot of people have criticized this team. What do they do when it's time to actually nut up and win? They were put in that position today, and now they're moving to the championship series, to which you said, if they take another 4 wins, then Aaron Boone, to which you said, should keep his job. I kind of agree with you, but they still got to go out and do it.
Oh, absolutely. Let's not, let's give Boone the credit. I guess, logically, okay, we're not giving him something he hasn't already earned or whatever.
No,
he did a really nice job in this series. I thought, he pushed the right buttons. I thought it was smart. There are probably people that were like, Gerrit Cole's at 87 pitches, just keep him in. I agreed when he was pulled. I actually thought he could have been pulled inning before. So I give Boone a lot of credit for doing that. Holmes, sticking with him, being willing to rely on Holmes. He's pitching well. Keep him out there. I don't have any issues. As long as he can pitch like this in the postseason, no one's going to care. It's not. See, here's the common misconception. And this is what you'll find when you get to the postseason. A lot of Yankee fans and fans in general will look at players that sucked during the regular season in any capacity, whether it was a little bit, a long time, whatever. And that is who they are. And people think, oh, they don't want this guy to succeed. That couldn't be further from the truth. I think we all here would agree if Clay Holmes and Luke Weaver are dominant throughout the rest of this postseason, no one is going to complain. No one's going to be like, oh, I hate Clay Holmes. I wish he didn't pitch well. No, what happens is when a player doesn't play well, it can impact the best of players. It can impact your favorite player. If you constantly see, I went through this. I loved Brett Gardner, but there was a time where Brett Gardner was no longer an MLB starter anymore. He just wasn't. And like you get to that point and you're like, all right, fine, wave the white flag. But that said, if Brett Gardner came out, it was mashing. Do you think anybody's gonna be like, oh no, Gardy's hitting again? No. So that's how I feel about Clay Holmes. I want to make that clear. And I think we also need to make something clear on the show. We may not like certain players in a certain position. We may have issues with Verdugo's hustle or lack thereof. We might have issues with this and that. But if guys produce, we don't have issues. That is the simple answer. Okay, if Jose Trevino is out there and he's hitting 450 and Austin Wells is hitting $159, I'll tell you right now, I'm not going to be complaining that Jose Trevino is coming through when Austin Wells is not. I'm just going to say, okay, well, they should be playing Jose Trevino over Austin Wells. We went over this before, but I just want to make that clear because I get Clay Holmes. This might be a surprise for people, but he's now gone, I think, 11 innings of scoreless ball. That is the best in Yankee history in the postseason.
That is a surprise to me. I don't know about everybody else. If you had this expectation, he got put in the setup role where he's getting holds now and he's coming out, walking into the dugout and shaking Aaron Boone's hand. If you thought this is going to be successful, I know we'd mentioned in previous shows, he has really good success in the 8th inning, right? And that's a good thing. But no, I didn't expect this. To best describe what's happening with Clay Holmes, and for those of you who are like, well, this pitcher was objectively bad for the majority of the season. He was really good for the first month. He hadn't given up a run. Great. But he was bad, atrocious, right? For the better part of 4.5 months. He was not good. Okay. He was going to set an all-time Yankee record for blown saves if we allowed him to, but we pulled him from the role and gave it to Weaver. But where I feel with Holmes is kind of like, Jake, I don't know if you've ever been to a restaurant where you receive food poisoning. And if you'd ever return to that restaurant,
Subway.
There goes that Subway sponsorship. But
nope, don't want one.
Clear. Right. That's fair. But you walk into that restaurant again, you always think about the first time they got you sick, right?
This just happened, by the way. Just happened a week ago.
Right. So when you go back to that restaurant and you get a meal under your belt and everything's fine, then you go one more time and everything's fine again. Eventually down the road, you build some type of trust that things are going to be okay if I eat at this restaurant. That is where we are with Clay Holmes. You don't want to overextend this and start putting Clay Holmes back into the closer's role or put him into a situation that it's not opportunistic for his skill set. But damn it, Jake, if we're in a situation in a close game in the 8th inning, Clay Holmes is good all of a sudden. He just is. And do you remember the comparison I made just before this show? It actually reminds me a lot of the 2020 Dodgers. The 2020 Dodgers, the entire year, and I know we're Yankees fans, so we're not necessarily tapped into the way every other team, especially all these major markets, how they're covered. But if you look at this postseason roster that they had, you look at their bullpen, they had guys like Pedro Baez, okay? Joe Kelly, Victor Gonzalez, that name's familiar, right? So a lot of these names, they were saying, yeah, we can't win. Why? Well, we've got the starting pitcher, but when we pull a Clayton Kershaw, who are we going to, right? All year, they were giving up runs. But eventually, as time went on, you got into September, you started to look up and said, hold on a second here. We've got 2 or 3 guys who are actually lights out right now. They just are. They went into the postseason and they were deadly. The Yankees, in my opinion, bullpen was a huge question mark going into the postseason this year. I didn't know what we were going to do if we faced a Cleveland in a postseason series. I don't feel that anxiety now. Going into a series with Cleveland, I'm not looking at it and saying Clase is on the other side and who in the world's going to be closing games for us? Weaver. That's who. Weaver's been spectacular. He's as good as they come. And not only is he excellent and excelling in his role is not even closing per se. He is essentially coming into games when the Yankees need him. If they need 5 outs, he's coming into the game. If they need to shut it down in the 9th inning, you're facing the 2 through 5 of an order, Weaver's your guy. He's somebody that clearly is not shying away from the moment. And to be honest with you, Jake, when you watch the Yankees play over the years, it seems like there's a lot of people afraid to play in this market, afraid to be a Yankee, afraid of what could go wrong. Weaver doesn't seem like you would even be able to tell that any of these games are important. So I absolutely love what he brings and everything he stands for right now. And at the very least, what it tells me is that I can trust the end of the game, that we're not just going to ruin a game before our offense gets an opportunity to take a game away. So where I'm at with this team, our offense is still, in my opinion, we've got a ways to go. I liked the day that Aaron Judge had today. I thought he was more involved. He wasn't trying to force the issue. I thought that it was apparent on screen. And if he's going to rebound and be the player that we saw all year, he's going to have to get acclimated back into what he was actually doing well, which was commanding the strike zone and not swinging at pitchers' pitches. He was swinging at his pitches. He did that today, and you see he got on base 3 times. That's an impact right there, and we that paid off.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I thought Aaron Judge not trying to do too much. It wasn't a perfect day, and we're not going to say it was, but I thought you saw some really good things. I mean, 2 walks. He had a double. I think, the biggest issue I had was when he clobbers one, and it's a nice play. And it's like, that doesn't really show up as anything more than just an out in the stat sheet, but right. Volpe had one of those too. I think it's a good sign. I mean, things are going in the right direction. And when you have, 8 hits, and let's just say, 4 of them, or rather 6 of them, are in your top 5, hitters in the lineup, that's really good. I do think at some point, with Austin Wells kind of slumping here, I do think at some point they might have to make a decision there. Who do you put? Do you put Stanton in the cleanup spot? Do you put, Jazz Chisholm there and try to mix things up? Because Chisholm's been struggling too, but maybe you just try to mix things up in that regard. I'm not sure there's a right or wrong answer because it's one series. And I want to say this. I think Jazz Chisholm, I thought this was really cool. After the game, he was basically asked multiple times, like, all sorts of people were asking him about, this team and everything. And, Jazz Chisholm said to Gary Phillips, I'd go to war with these guys any day. They introduced me like I'm the effing little brother they always wanted. And I feel like I'm the little brother they always wanted. So to be here right now, I know I didn't produce much in the series, but these guys made me feel like I did the world. And I feel like him acknowledging that, because so much so, like Anthony Volpe wasn't very good down the stretch. And then they're sitting there, champagne, everything. And Anthony Volpe didn't really come out and say, yeah, I'm looking forward to a better postseason or whatever. And I don't mean to throw him under the bus, but my point is, guys that struggle, Alex Verdugo, whoever, it's like, they never really come out and they admit, okay, yeah, I wasn't good that series. All right, let me turn this around. So
you wouldn't be able to tell, right? While looking at the bottles popped. No, you wouldn't be able to tell that. Like, you'd watch Anthony Volpe and think that he had 4 hits tonight, right? Yeah. Which, to be fair, we still want them to enjoy it, celebrate.
Well, Volpe was good this series, I thought.
But in the field, you're not just going to be like, the Yankees just clinched to the ALCS, and you're just sulking in the clubhouse popping champagne. Yeah. Jake, what's wrong? I had 1 hit this series. I was terrible. No.
That's why you don't need to do what Jazz did, like highlighting his failure, or whatever you want to call it. But the fact that he deserves recognition. And I also want to bring something to everyone's attention that didn't see it. Apparently, Jazz was also talking about Michael Garcia, that whole thing that happened. And he went over because he thought he was trying to injure Volpe. So I thought that was really good teammate right there. That was I like that because he tried to explain. He's like, no, it wasn't about me. He's like, I knew that stuff was said on Twitter and social media and whatever with Michael, and I didn't like what he was doing near Volpe. So he's like, I was worried that he was going to injure him, and so I came over and said something. So that's basically, I'm paraphrasing, but
you can really tell that
Jazz cares.
Hasn't gone through the Yankees PR course that I'm sure they'll put him through this offseason. Because usually we don't get these type of answers. We just don't. I'm trying to think of any other Yankees outside of like my dad where they'll just say whatever. He's one of those dudes. He was. Because I remember Alex Verdugo at the beginning of this year as well, the way he was kind of covered. You're like, all right, he's talking not necessarily like a Yankee. He's giving us these off-the-cuff answers. We're talking about his previous manager. He's giving us real answers. This is not typical of a Yankee. They're just one foot in front of the other. We're here to win. I'm going to do whatever it is that I can possibly do. There's been a lot of nerve, right? In a good way with this team this year. And we even saw it in some bad ways, some good ways. Gleyber Torres, remember I'm a second baseman. Like we have some people now that are getting comfortable. And then also some people who are making other people uncomfortable by sometimes telling their truth. And most often you won't hear a player saying, yeah, I thought that dude was trying to hurt my guy, right? That was very Manny Machado-esque. I love that. I do too. That we're at war and the Royals are bums. And then when we beat them, hey, congratulations on an amazing season. We'll see you guys next year. And then when we play you next year, we hate you again. That's the way that this goes. That's war. So I'm all for this. And my expectation, I know your expectation, is that Jazz Chisholm, he's acknowledging that he didn't play the way that for the reason he was brought here, he didn't do that in the ALDS. He knows he needs to show up in the championship series for the Yankees to go where they need to go, right?
I think
he played a nice third base this series. I believe he's going to as well. He's accountable. He knows it. And what I love about the championship series, you get a 7-game full-length series to get accommodated into postseason baseball. Absolutely love it. I'm expecting big things from Jazz.
Well, and you had told me off air the ALCS will have back-to-back-to-back game, right? The 3 games in a row. That will be better than people understand. So pitching will be a problem, right? That's not great for pitching. It's not great for bullpen. Now you're back to the regular season. You'll have to, be creative, right? But hitting wise, that'll keep you in a flow. And I feel like you're going to be kind of sporadic all across your lineup early on in the playoffs because, you got all these different days off and what have you, travel day. And they have days off like we were talking about, kind of scrutinizing them for like, why do they have this day off, But when you get into the ALCS and they're trying to wrap this thing up as soon as possible because you don't want there to be snow everywhere when
this is where we see Jason Dominguez, by the way, because Giancarlo Stanton is somebody that the Yankees consider a more fragile player. That 3-game stretch where you just mentioned back-to-back-to-back days, those are the games we play on the road against either the Royals, the Royals or the Guardians? So those are the
3 are on the road?
Correct. And they're in back-to-back-to-back. And then, because there's no travel day.
That's why. Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Back to Yankee Stadium. So my theory is that the Yankees may deploy Jason Dominguez, and I know I've made predictions that Jason Dominguez may make an appearance earlier in this series, and he didn't. But that's credit to Aaron Boone in trusting a player with pedigree in October, and that paid off in a big way. He went on the side of caution, right? We're going to be patient with a player who's not necessarily making a huge impact. At the time, Giancarlo had 1 hit in the series. He had not made a mark at all. Obviously, it rolled into multiple double plays. It was easy to argue for Giancarlo to come out. A lot of people said he should. We talked about that. But Jason Dominguez, in terms of health, he has a role in the championship series, in my opinion. You're talking about a player that is young, that's not going to have a problem playing one day, maybe back-to-back days in the middle of a series. He can do that. But Giancarlo Stanton, where he is physically as a player right now in his career, I would say playing back-to-back-to-back postseason games would be a lot to ask for him physically.
Yeah, I agree with that. it's interesting, right? Because the ALCS game 3. Okay, so Monday, the 14th, that would be at the stadium. Tuesday is at the stadium. Then they have an off day Wednesday.
Yes.
And then they play Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. 3 in a row, like you said, all in either Detroit or Cleveland. And then after that, so that would be if necessary, of course. So game 5, if necessary, would be Saturday in wherever. Then Sunday, they have off. Then Monday at the stadium, Tuesday at the stadium. Okay. I think it depends on how the series is going. Because I think Boone does care about health. Obviously, we've seen it before. But if they're going to game 3 and they're down 0-2, I don't think Stanton sees the bench. But if they win the first 2 games, maybe you give Stanton the first game off. And of that, game 3, game 4, game 5. That's interesting. There's going to be Boone is going to have to continue to manage his tail off because it's not an easy decision. And it's not
no easy choice.
Well, there's no easy choice either way. And I know we wanted to talk a little bit more about the game, because there is some stuff left to talk about, some other hitters and whatnot. Don't want to, have them go unmentioned. But we will get into kind of the ramifications because you had a really, I guess, a well thought out point on that I wanted you to get a chance to talk about with the Tigers. So let's wrap up this game, and then we're going to talk about the ALCS, and we're going to talk about the Tigers point that you're making. And in addition to that, we're going to also talk about the starting pitching and where you and I might go, where we think the Yankees could go, where they should go, all of that. So let's start off going back to the Yankee game here. Gleyber, it's weird, right? He hits 200. I thought Gleyber was great in the leadoff role in this series, and he hit 200. So it goes back to what I was saying yesterday. I don't think the batting average is truly indicative of what we're seeing in this sample size. I think OPS is actually kind of showing it. 867 OPS, yeah. That feels like what I'm seeing with Torres. Soto, right? Soto's OPS might not be as great, but I'm seeing quality baseball from Soto. Okay. He's coming through, timely hitting. Once again, he had an RBI in this one to get it going.
Momentum today.
That was huge. And then, Judge, now his slugging is up there a little bit better, and it's not great, but he's in the 600s instead of in the 400s or whatever, OPS wise. Wells, it feels like he's right now below 400 OPS. It does feel like he's batting 125. Yeah. He had 2 really important hits, or at least 1 really important hit, 2 hits, I think. And, that was great, but he needs to pick it up because when Judge does come on, like we believe that Judge is eventually going to start hitting, like today was a really good sign. When that happens, now it's going to go back to what it was in the regular season. They're going to just pitch around him and get to Wells. And Wells will have to be able to step up. He can't falter. And then you have Stanton doing what he's doing, and he has an OPS over 1,000, which that makes sense. I feel that. Jazz Chisholm struggling, 133. OPS is below 500. That feels right. Now we'll see what he does in the next series. Volpe hit 250 in this series. OPS is just right below 700. I'll take it. I think he was better than I expected him to be in this series. Verdugo kind of just had that one game, but hey, that one game, he played a role, okay? And that one game was important. So I'm not going to get too much on him. But yeah, his OPS is below 500.
Yeah, and how many 8 hitters in the big leagues are impacting more than one game? Like making a game-changing impact in a postseason series, it's not many 8 hitters. If you affect one game in a positive way, your presence is absolutely worth it. I cannot, especially in a 5-game series. Alex Verdugo, a lot of people were saying from the jump, game 1, why is he in the lineup over Jason Dominguez? And I thought that was a valid point. But then we had the question mark of defense. Alex Verdugo showed in game 1 exactly why he was out there defensively. He had a few hits. Defensively, he was spectacular. He was holding guys to singles on balls off the wall. He was hitting cutoff man and making great throws on bases. He was showing what he was supposed to be doing during the regular season. So once you do that one time, yeah, like I said, his presence is felt and it's going to matter. And hopefully his presence isn't so needed, right, in this next series, because our better players in Aaron Judge and Juan Soto can probably do a lot of the work. So yeah, I thought Verdugo was good in this series. He did enough. He did his job.
It's really kind of funny because both New York teams are moving on, right? Then they're waiting.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the Mets are channeling how the Yankees would win games. They're winning with a lot of power. They have, Alonso, and, you have, Lindor and Vientos and all that, right?
Lindor's having his Jeter days. Like he is.
Yeah.
Lindor is getting the big hits, hitting grand slams in the 8th inning.
That grand slam was,
come on now.
That, regardless of what happens moving forward, that's going to be an all-time, moment in Mets history, just winning that the way it was. You have to understand, when I say that, I mean no disrespect, but they don't have 27 world championships, right? Like the Mets aren't a franchise with a ton of moments. So
no,
that Lindor grand slam against an arch rival to knock, basically, without saying it, everyone in the ballpark, including the Phillies, knew that was it. That was the game. So, yeah, the reason I bring it up is I find it fascinating. The Yankees are going with more of a different approach. They're not winning so much with the long ball. I mean, we're seeing it base hit. Oh, Duke Ellis is going to be a pinch runner here. And, oh, look at Giancarlo Stanton's going to steal second for God knows why, but we're not.
Would have liked to see Jazz Chisholm bunt in that situation where we had a man at second base and nobody out. That, in my opinion, was a situation where
is that the one where he struck out?
Correct. He. To be fair, I want to make sure he gets credit where it was due. Mm-hmm. It was a 3-0 count. I'm not giving him any excuses here. 3-0 pitches are usually called inaccurately. They usually extend the strike zone. They're not trying to give you a 4-pitch walk unless it's egregious. They did exactly that. A pitch was outside the strike zone. They gave it to him. And the 3-1 pitch was a ball in the dirt. We are going after it. The 3-2 pitch was in the dirt. We're going after it. You cannot do that. Not at that stage, given what I actually tweeted what his job was, which was to hit a ground ball to the right side. Just advance the runner. You don't need to hit a ball 450 feet.
I love Jazz, but I texted you immediately. I was like, what exactly?
You said it was the worst at bat ever.
And I said it was the worst AB from Jazz of all time. I've never seen Jazz look worse.
No, it was to be fair, these at bats in the postseason they're difficult. Right?
It got in his head, though, you could tell, because he's trying to do the right thing and work the count. And then, so it's like, yeah, I get it. It's half the battle. But unfortunately, we need you to complete the full battle. Like, you need to win. And I'm glad it didn't end up being detrimental to the win. But yeah, I love Jazz, but we have to keep it real here on this show. I might love Jazz, but I'm not worth listening to if I'm not willing to call him out on his faults. And I know people have said before, yeah, you really give Volpe and Verdugo a hard time, but your favorites and Wells and Jazz, you turn a blind eye when they make an error. You turn a blind eye when they're not hitting well. And so I'm not doing this to appease those people. I'm doing this because this is me. It's actually what has been said about that is not true at all. Gary knows that, because I gave Austin Wells problems. As a matter of fact, I was the one that was saying, and I love Austin Wells. I think he's going to be a superstar catcher for the long haul. But my thing here is that if Jose Trevino is hitting better than Wells, then Jose Trevino should be in the lineup. If Jazz Chisholm is making error after error, then John Birdie can go over to the third. And if he's not hitting at all, and it gets to that point where it's like, Yeah, you got Birdie who's hitting 286 right now, but let's just say his average goes up to 336, right?
Right.
And now you're like, well, we want to get Cabrera in the lineup. We want to get Birdie in the lineup. I guess we're just going to have to give Jazz a day. And it's not a day because he's, he needs a day off as in like health. Like he might just get benched if he doesn't play well enough. And
Yeah,
I'm
he could have
totally
just done
willing to
less in
say
that
that.
situation. Just show up clearly, hitting a ground ball to second base or to the right side, getting a job done, right? Giving yourself up, 1 out, man at third base, and now you move the lineup down to Anthony Volpe, and you have to trust him that he'll put the ball in the air. That's his job, right? So you can't say, well, we don't want to tee up Volpe for a man on third with 1 out, because if that's the case, there's no reason for Volpe to be in there in the first place. So you need to just trust that Jazz Chisholm is going to do his job. And this is also up to assistant coaches, other players, leadership, and say, when you get into situations like this, sacrifice yourself, right? Do less. We don't need you to look like Ken Griffey Jr. and hit a ball 450 feet to right field. We don't need this. Do less. Try and drop down a bunt twice. And if you don't, we need you to grind out an at bat, right? Guys chase pitches all the time. You can't chase 2 pitches in a row, right? Can't make those type of mistakes at that time. Like you said, thankfully, it didn't haunt us at all. We won this game. We're on to the championship series. But these things do matter. They accumulate. And we just want to tidy up these things as we go on to even tougher series.
I agree completely. Let's move on to the ALCS after one thing I want to bring up.
Yeah.
That play John Birdie made, that double play, people don't understand. That could have been bad. If he does, so he steps on first and he goes the unconventional way. You'll actually see a lot of first basemen, even though they're right next to the first base bag, they feel more confident making that throw. So it's the right of the runner. Instead, when you hit that first base bag, if you're throwing back over to second, well, now you have a chance to potentially airmail your target, hit the runner, right? Because you now have to throw away like to the left side. And that's what he did. Right. It has to be a perfect throw. And obviously, you and I both play baseball. I can tell you right now, that is not taken lightly. That play was incredibly important because the next time up, that inning, that's when they got their first run of the game, their only run of the game. And that could have been dangerous. So you look at that and you're like, well, yeah. And you could say the same thing. Verdugo gets a lot of crap. And yeah, he didn't hit that well after game 1, but there were a few of those plays in left field that I did not feel comfortable if Jason Dominguez was out there. If I'm being just entirely transparent and honest,
on any of those fly balls.
No, because they weren't even routine. I mean, you could say what you will. I think we've taken them for granted, but ever since we went to that game at Yankee Stadium, I'll never take a fly ball for granted ever again because he was not in position for that. Didn't see it, whatever. And I get it. They have those weird dimensions in left field, but no, it wasn't major league-esque. So
I don't know if I can call it taking for granted. I'm going to speak for myself here. I don't think there's a single Yankee I took for granted. I really don't. I think once you show me that you're not doing something well for an extended period of time, like if I watch you for 2.5 months play below average defense, right? And Alex Verdugo, we were assessing, right, in terms of analytics, because the Yankees say that they love analytics and they don't solely make their decisions based on those things, but the analytics do matter. The numbers matter. Well, those numbers that they talk about suggested that Alex Verdugo's defense was declining.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a matter of me giving up on the defense that he was supposed to be providing, the contact bat he was supposed to be providing, some occasional power, or any other player on this roster. No, it's not a matter of me believing in you. No, it's a matter of your output. And then after a while, I have to say, should you be in the position that you're in? And then when Jason Dominguez gets called up and they say, well, why isn't he playing? Is it about defense? And they say no. Well, then I know now I'm being lied to, because as we go on to the playoffs, it's clear Alex Verdugo is out in left field because of his glove, and his glove is good, right? It has absolutely made an impact in this series. It helped the Yankees advance. It did. We don't want to know where we'd be if Jason Dominguez was playing left field in this series. I don't want to find out. And I understand that he's going to have a major impact in the foreseeable future for this Yankees team, and that is great. But for what we need right now, Alex Verdugo is the player we need in left field. He's just a guy who's going to go out, field his position. He's got a great arm. Close games, you want really good arms, good range out in the outfield, a guy who's essentially going to grind out at bats, not strike out. That's who he is. And occasionally he'll make a bat. Occasionally he's going to make an impact with his bat, right? He's not a guy you're going to rely on. Most likely you're going to see 0 for 3, 0 for 4, but occasionally you're going to see something pop, right? So Jake, where we're at, Alex Verdugo, Anthony Volpe, we talked about a couple of these guys. Their job is just field your position, right? Anthony Volpe, I didn't have any offensive expectations for him. No, it was field your position and make do with what you have physically. He's done that.
Yeah, and he's struggled at times as well in the field, but he's also made some key and critical plays. So, you gotta take the good with the bad, I guess. Definitely you're doing that with Juan Soto. I don't have to tell you that. So, but let's get into the ALCS, and then we have a mailbag at the end of the show that we'll get to. But all right, ALCS October 14th. It is 7:37 p.m. Yankee Stadium. The Yankees are taking on either the Tigers or the Guardians. First off, Gary, I'm going to ask you point blank, who wins Game 5 of the ALDS, Cleveland or Detroit?
Detroit's winning this game. And this has everything to do with Tarek Skubal. This guy is big time. He's not afraid, clearly. Like, I actually saw his mother tweeting that she didn't like his language coming off the mound. I think he told everybody to shut the F up, whatever it was, when he came off the mound. He's not afraid.
You can do that when you're that dominant.
When you're that good, you can talk, right? And that's something I think everyone can agree with. If you back it up, you can talk. So Tarek Skubal's starting Saturday night. It's at 5:08 Mountain Standard Time. So here's the interesting part about this series. Every Yankees fan should be rooting for Detroit to win this game. And I'm going to tell you why, Jake. If you look at the schedule, and we briefly talked about it earlier, the championship series is starting very quickly. Very. You also mentioned that this World Series is going to go into early November. Well, when this game on Saturday is played, Tarek Skubal will pitch, okay? Now, Sunday is a day off where the National League Game 1 will be played in the championship series. And Monday, we're already playing Game 1 at the stadium. So what does that mean? That means Tarek Skubal will, at best, win a Game 5 scenario. He will be on his second day of rest, day 2 after his start, and Game 1 will already be underway. Okay? Now you have the following day. He's on day 3 of rest, also not likely to start this game. So you are going to start the championship series. If we play the Tigers, Tarek Skubal won't even see a mound until Game 3. Wednesday's day off. Thursday on the road in Detroit, likely if they win, you would see Tarek Skubal. Then you would also see him at the end of the series. So in my opinion, the best thing you can ever have is where the other team's ace is nowhere to be found in the first 2 games of a huge series. That's all you can ask for. Now, would Detroit like to say, we're going to come into the series, or Cleveland come into the series? Okay, we're going to go out there, try to steal one of these first 2 games. Now we have our best guy going in a 1-1 series. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. But what happens if you lose both of those games? Now all of a sudden there's a ton of pressure on your best arm. And the Yankees have to feel like we're going for the jugular now, right? So I love the idea of rooting for Detroit in this game. I think both of their offenses between the Tigers and Guardians, they are struggling. I understand these are very hot teams. They are essentially dominating with their arms. And if you really look at the starting rotations between these two franchises, they don't match up the same way that we do. They just don't. We have some unreliable guys. They have more, right? We've got some top flight guys. They have less. So a lot of the talent that you're going to see in Cleveland, it's going to be out of their bullpen. But the Yankees can end games before then. I'm believing in that. I think the Yankees in general, if you're a Yankees fan, you should be rooting for the Tigers to win this game. It bodes incredibly well for us.
So I think I don't think it really either way. I'm not really overly impressed with the Guardians rotation and their bullpen. Clase hasn't been Clase. And I think a lot of people are kind of not aware of that.
They have been extending him in not the classic role that he usually comes in. He's come out for 2 5-out saves in that short 5-game series. No, well, that's the way they've deployed him.
Yeah.
So
it's kind of like tonight.
I don't know.
I don't know why the hell Urseg came in so early. What the hell was the point of that? Their closer came in like the 5th inning. The Royals. I don't understand.
It could have been, you know what it could have been? Urseg may have came into this game as early as he did for the similar reason. Do you remember in that Baltimore series where, who was it? Was it Buck Showalter where he left Zach Britton in the bullpen and never deployed him in a important situation in the game? I think that's what we were seeing. I think Kansas City wanted to keep the game where it was to take momentum. And when Urseg comes out there and gives up a run in an inning and a third's worth of work, that strips all momentum from Kansas City. Because also, when you go into a tight game, into an 8th, 9th, or maybe even extra innings, you don't have Urseg at your disposal. That's now gone.
No, they really, I didn't like the way they utilized their bullpen at all. That's why, I don't know. I've also looked at the Guardians, and I know going into this postseason, their bullpen was like historic, right? I haven't been overly impressed with their bullpen. I really haven't. I'm not saying it's bad. I definitely don't think it's bad. I think they've pitched well, but it hasn't been the dominance that I was expecting. And you could say, oh yeah, it's one series, but yeah, be that as it may, one series or not, they might not even be able to find out what they have in the ALCS if they don't get their act together. So, Clase gave up 3 runs in game 2. Not ideal. And then, he gave up a run today and he got the save, but I definitely noticed that Morgan gave up a run out of the bullpen in game 3, so I don't know. I think Skubal is definitely dangerous, but without the rest, because he's not going to be able to pitch game 1 or game 2. They could rush him for game 2. That wouldn't be ideal.
It's Detroit's lineup that we want to see, right? It is when you look at Detroit's
bat is still there. So I don't really want to face Steven Kwan. I know he's not like a slugger, but I don't want to face him in a tight, because here's the thing. We've seen it with Altuve. Sometimes and Altuve did slug in the postseason, but the thing that made Altuve so dangerous was when they batted around and you go up to the top of the order, and now you have guys on base, and now you have the pure hitting ability of Jose Altuve. You have the pure hitting ability of a Steven Kwan. And
we saw that with Yoshida in that Boston series as well. Contact bats and extra innings against Holmes, actually, and he gave up a 3-run homer to a contact player. Those contact bats are dangerous. So I see where you're coming from. Detroit's more of a power style. They seem more controllable offensively. So it's in terms of how we project Gerrit Cole to pitch in that series, I think in general that Detroit series is better for us. But I'm with you. Neither of these two teams scare me a lick. So I'm just looking at this from a matchup standpoint. And when a team pitches their ace and they don't get to deploy him until a game 3 at home, I'm wanting that.
Yeah, and if you go up against the Tigers, that means you're not going up against Jose Ramirez. And I know he's not maybe having the best postseason that he was hoping for, but
did you see the ball he hit today?
He had well, sometimes it's all it takes. That's why I keep saying, if Judge hits a home run, I do think good things will come after that, right? The double, I think he can. But the thing that makes the Guardians a little dangerous is you have Kwan, you have Ramirez, you have Naylor. I don't like Naylor, but the guy's a power hitter. Okay.
Gerrit Cole hates Naylor, not as a person. Maybe he does, but
Lane
the
Thomas.
way he plays, Naylor has absolutely given him fit. So there are
Lane
some
Thomas was such a huge pickup, by the way. Huge. That's a guy that I wanted to. Yeah, I wanted him last year. Remember we did a live stream on it.
Yeah, I remember.
So yeah, the Guardians have guys, but the Tigers. The thing that needs to be said is really they don't have a lot going. Like right now, Riley Green. I mean, I know he went 2 for 3 today, but he's not necessarily going off right now. They've just had timely hitting, and there hasn't been a ton of runs aside from that 7-0 ball game. This is a team that just knocks in base hit RBI singles. That's what they do. They're not slugging the crap out of you, but that is the death by 1,000 paper cuts, and that will win you a World Series if the timely hitting doesn't go away. And that's the thing, is that ultimately you have to imagine, while the Tigers have been a really nice story, like the bus stops in the ALCS. Like, to me, I'll go as far as to say there's zero excuse for the Yankees not to go back to the World Series for the first time since 2009. Zero.
I don't think either series goes past 5 games, by the way.
I think I would take the Yankees in a 6-game series against the Guardians. Well, maybe I would take them in 5. Tigers, I could see 5 as well.
I agree about Cleveland. I think they take us an extra game, but if we go 7 games, I guess we don't really care how we get through. If we go 7 games with Cleveland, then so what? But
I would prefer to have my heart intact. I don't want to have to sit there in a winner take all game 7. We've already had to do that with the Astros in a game where the Yankees outplayed them at the beginning, and then the Astros just pulled away at the end.
Like, it'd probably be good for our podcast, but we don't want to see it.
No. It would be very exciting. It's funny. My dad texted me coming back from his open mic. He was like, I was so bummed that you and Gary weren't going live. And I was like, yep, blame YouTube. It was like,
never again.
He wanted us to go live. I was like, I mean, hey, it would have been fun, but instead, alas, we are recording this at 2:23 a.m. Eastern time. But anyway, yeah, I think now we got to move the discussion to who the heck is going to pitch game 1, because Gary, the first thing that if I was Aaron Boone, the first thing I'd want to know, do I have Nestor Cortez for the ALCS, Doc? Let me know. Is he good to go? Because I need him. And if he's not, then fine. Hopefully we get to the World Series without him, and then he's pitching in the World Series. But because I don't think his injury will go past the 8. But what I could see happening, Gary, is that he's cleared, but maybe for like a game 4. So they kind of have to eat that additional roster spot. See what I'm saying? So maybe, he ends up making it. And so you're down a bullpen pitcher, and that sucks. But the trade-off is that you have Nestor Cortez. And
the report
whether it's game
is that
4 or not,
Yankees injured left-hander plans to increase intensity in today's throwing session. This was 8 hours ago. Yes, This was today. So the way you have to look at that is increased intensity of throwing. Sounds like it's the ramp-up process, right? And the fact that we got that this morning kind of shows me, like you said, later on in the series, you can utilize me, whether it's out of the bullpen to start a really big game at the stadium. That's really good. But it seems like game 1, we're not exactly able to slate him in. And if that's the case, Jake, your answer earlier was that Luis Gil, who has not pitched, he did not pitch in the division series. He's fresh. He is. He's ready to pitch, and he was one of our best arms, if not our best arm all year. You can't just leave him in the bullpen. This is a situation, if Nestor can't pitch this game, where you can utilize Gerrit Cole just threw, Luis Gil can throw in this game. It is the perfect time to deploy him, and you just have to hope his command is there, and if it is, it should be a dominant game 1.
I agree completely. I just don't know, because, I mean, regardless of how you feel, for me personally, I watched Luis Gil all year. I mean, I only missed 2 games. The whole year covering this team, I only missed 2 games where I had to go back and like actually rewatch. And, what I found over the course of the year was that Rodon had some good starts. He did. And there were moments where you're like, wow, he's really worth the money. And there were moments where you're like, wow, he's not worth any bit near the money. But I'm watching Luis Seal and I'm like, this is his rookie year, and he was clearly the better pitcher. Clearly the better pitcher than Rodon. So I guess the real question is, how does it even get to this? How is it that, and I'm not trying to throw shade at Boone, because I think this is more than just Boone. I think Cashman had a lot to do with this too. How do you get to a point where a guy that was your ace, a rookie who was your ace while your ace was nursing injuries, how did you get to a point where now he's not even pitching in the first round of the playoffs at all? And he's healthy. Sure. He's essentially a healthy scratch. He pitched as much as Marcus Stroman did, who didn't even make the roster. Well, he pitched as much as you and I did. So, that you could always go there. But to your point, and what I've been saying is he has to pitch in this series. Aaron Boone's smart. Okay, I understand he makes some dumb decisions here and there, but he's a smart guy. Always say it, third generation big leaguer, all that, right? He knows. He knows they didn't need to put in Luis Heel. They have him ready. Okay, so I think we are going to see him. And since Cole would be on 3 days rest, we won't see him for game 1, which is totally fine by me. I'm not rushing Gerrit Cole. We're not doing the Randy Johnson, Kurt Schilling. Yeah, 2-man rotation. Who cares?
Gerrit Cole's game 2 starter, correct?
I would say yes. Now,
is there a day in between game 1 and 2?
No. You have the day in between the 2 games, and then the 3 in a row, but it's Monday, Tuesday.
Gerrit Cole would be on 4 days rest for Tuesday's game 2.
All right. So now this is where people are going to want to know, because I would save Gerrit Cole for game 3. You just don't know how things are going to go down. I was very inspired by the way he pitched on the road. I want Gerrit Cole going to war first game of, because you don't know how the series is going to go. You have to plan this out ahead of time, right? So correct. Gerrit Cole, to me, makes the most sense if you're going to a Cleveland or you're going to the Tigers. You're down 0-2, you're up 2-0. It doesn't matter. The first game, when you're setting the tone on the road, because you're going to have 3 games in a row, you're going to have to win on the road. Like that's the reality of it. This is the best road team in baseball, Gary. So Gerrit Cole is pitching game 3 for me. What I'm doing is I'm going to go with Luis Heel for game 1, and game 2 will be Carlos Rodon, and then game 4 will be Clark Schmidt. That's what I'm doing.
Now, tell you my rotation?
Do I feel confident in Rodon? No, but I'm willing to work with the Yankees because I know Carlos Rodon is starting. He's going to start one of those games. So if I'm being realist, I think Heel makes way too much sense as the starter. Now, also to be fair to Clark Schmidt, wouldn't that be 5 days rest for game 2?
That's what I was. So here's my rotation for the championship.
Because I would just do that then.
It is Heel pitching game 1. Clark Schmidt is pitching game 2. Gerrit Cole on 5 days rest is pitching game 3. Nestor Cortez, who they tell me is ramping up and will be ready, is pitching game 4. Then I'm going back to Luis Heel. So people are probably wondering, where is Carlos Rodon? Carlos Rodon isn't actually, I'm not considering this a reduction in his job title. The way I look at him and his role, I think there's value in his arm. You saw 98 all the way up to 100 miles an hour. His stuff was electric, okay? I'm utilizing him in the Patrick Corbin role in 2021 when Washington won that World Series. I'm using him in that role. He can go out there. If you end up with a Nestor Cortez start that goes 4 1/3, you can throw Rodon out there and pitch him the rest of the game. He has the stuff to go 4 or 5 innings in a postseason game against anybody. So that's what I'm doing. I'm utilizing Rodon and picking my matchups, when I'm going to use them, exactly when, right? That's what I'm doing. I trust Luis Heel, who pitched far better over the course of the regular season. I'm trusting Nestor Cortez. If he's healthy, I trust him more than Carlos Rodon, who pitched spectacular at the end of this regular season in really important games to win us essentially in a pennant race. He was important. And not only that, he pitched big innings all year. I'm rewarding him pitching big games in October. So, and Clark Schmidt, He's a player that's living on the corners. He pitches postseason baseball all the way back to May, right?
Oh,
If he didn't get
absolutely.
hurt, he was probably going to be our best arm this year, right? So I'm trusting our best arms. I understand that we're more than likely not going to deploy this because Rodon is highly paid. He did pitch incredibly well, to be fair to him, for about 4 1/3 innings of work, and it really unraveled for him in that last start. You hope it doesn't happen again, but I don't take that chance, Jake. I just don't.
No, now that you've brought that up, I definitely agree with you because I've been a big fan of starting Cortez as the 2 in the rotation. I've been saying that, but then he gets hurt. And so now you're like, oh, okay. Well, yeah, I think I go Heel 1, Schmidt for game 2, Cole for the first game of on the road, game 3. Then game 4, I go with Nestor. Game 5, I would probably see. I'd still consider Rodon. I would, but I might go back to Luis Heel. What I do want to say is when Rodon, and I want to make this clear because Rodon was excellent at the beginning of his start. Let's not forget that. You can work with that. So if he can come out of, and it's different coming out of the bullpen, but if he can do that out of the bullpen, that's like 3 innings at least he can eat up where he's giving you crazy velocity right out of the pen. A guy that has enough to get, miss bats and be a problem. And you're pulling him out of the game because the game will come to an end where you're like, okay, well, I want my closer and I don't want Rodon closing the game.
He won't go 2 or 3 times. He will not go 3 times through an order. He essentially is going to go max output, 98 all the way up to 100, power slider, show the changeup every once in a while. You can just go balls to the walls, not worry about stamina, not worry about length, not worry about unraveling an otherwise really good start. None of that matters. If you saw 3 1/3 innings of work from Carlos Rodon from innings 1 through 3, you'd go, well, who gives a rip? He's still got 2.5 innings of work to go or 3 innings of work before I call this a good start. But you bring Rodon into a 1-1 game in the 4th, and he gives you 3 1/3 of shutout baseball and just dominates, and the Yankees take a 2-1 lead or a 3-run lead over that span. You say, wow, Carlos Rodon really did a nice job for the Yankees today. It changes the entire complexion of what his pitching means. I think in general, Carlos Rodon, the way he pitches and the way he deploys his pitches, it works for ever so long, right? It works 2 times through the order. You get 3rd time through the order. They tend to tag him up a little bit towards the end of the game. I take that opportunity away from the opponent. I put him in a situation that benefits him, benefits the Yankees in the most.
No, I hear you there. And when's game 6 and all that?
Game 6?
Yeah,
game 6 is Monday, October 21st.
Okay. So
which is after 1 day off, after that 3-day in a row, that final day that we have on the road, we get a day off. We return for back-to-back games that would be back-to-back days at home to essentially punch our ticket into a World Series.
So, okay, Cole would be pitching the 17th in this scenario. Now, it also makes sense with Rodon because that 3-game straight, you want to, help the bullpen out. So you have to get creative. So you have to do something like that. So Cole's
I like
pitching
game 7. So Gerrit Cole is saved to pitch game 7 at home if you get there. Now, there's no reason the Yankees, if they're behind in a series with their starting pitching they already have, that they can't force a game 7 if it hit the fan. And if you get to a game 7, Gerrit Cole should be able to handle both of these franchises at home at Yankee Stadium, right? That's what the scenario is. And if you win early, guess who's starting game 1 of the World Series? Gerrit Cole.
Yep. No, absolutely. I think that's the right approach. I think you go with the Heel Schmidt, then Cole, October 17th. October 18th would be, you would do Heel again, right?
I would just continue with the same.
Oh, no, Nestor would have October 18th. Then Game 5 would be Luis Heel. Game
Correct.
6 would be Clark. Game 7 would be Gerrit Cole. Now, of course, we're saying that, and Rodon will probably pitch Monday or
highly
something,
likely Rodon pitches. I would be shocked to not see Carlos Rodon unless they listen to this podcast. My expectation is that they're going to say Carlos Rodon's stuff was so excellent. We're going to hope that that continues. He doesn't make some of those same mistakes he made in the 5th and 6th inning. We've got to make an adjustment and then see if he makes that adjustment on the fly. But for me personally, I relinquish that. I don't want to find out if he makes that adjustment. I'm just going to trust players that have shown, right, with their play, not with their talk, with their play, they will make an adjustment, and I can trust that adjustment.
No, I agree with that. And I think, it's one of those things where you have to understand postseason baseball isn't like other postseason. Like hockey, for instance, you got your lines, you got your 4 lines, you got your defenseman, you got your goalie. You might try to do different things. Maybe this next man up off the bench, you get him going on the power play or whatever. You try different goalies, whatever, right? That's what you can do there. Football, you're rolling with what got you there. You're not like, yeah, we're going to go with a different starting quarterback today. Doesn't work that way. And the NBA, pretty much, it's just the same stuff. Maybe some guys get increased minutes. And of course, with the foul trouble thing, that dynamic plays into it. But really, baseball is different because everyone gets so caught up in the whole, oh, you can't do that to him. He pitched all year long. Rodon's earned his spot. But for me, if you start focusing on what's fair and what's not and start focusing on feelings and all that, you're not getting to the World Series. You have to do what's right. Now, a while back, I remember the Yankees pitched CC Sabathia in an elimination game on 3 days rest. Remember that?
Correct. Yep.
They had to. So this is just a reminder that if things go south, Gerrit Cole could see a start in game 5 too. Like, who knows, right? We don't know. And I wouldn't want to pitch him on 2 days rest or anything like that, but maybe he comes in, help out of the bullpen. It gets kind of weird. My point is, postseason baseball is so different than all the other postseasons. You actually have to play a different style than what you're used to. You can't just say, I'm going down with exactly what I came in with. No, because how many times have we seen these random heroes in the postseason emerge? And you're like, where the hell did Aaron Boone come from? Like, what? Like, that
I can never stop thinking of Marco Scutaro. Anytime someone goes,
Marco Scutaro,
postseason hero, who in God's earth thought Marco Scutaro would have an impact? We've got to be the only podcast that's ever been that talks about Marco Scutaro once a month.
Marco Scutaro has his own podcast and probably doesn't even talk about himself anywhere near as much as you talk about him.
Nope. Not a chance.
I will have to look up
what
the
you
Marco
do when it
Scutaro
matters
podcast.
most. I don't care about the name, the pedigree, all that stuff. If the pedigree doesn't repeat itself, because Giancarlo Stanton's October pedigree is repeating itself. We are beneficiaries of exactly that, right?
Yes.
But
absolutely.
There are also some big names, right? In this situation, Carlos Rodon, who we're talking about, he's the topic at hand. His pedigree, I mean, this is a guy who's gone out and done it, right? He's been really good in the big leagues for a bit now. And it is hard to say, maybe we should skip this start, right? And just
it was probably hard to say that with Stroman, but you have to make that decision.
Yeah, that decision, in my opinion, was... I hear what you're saying, but I think that 13 hit in 3 innings worth of work.
Well, no, that didn't.
They should have just put him on a slingshot and just shot him out to... I don't know what to tell you. You can't possibly have thought you're going to be on the postseason roster after that. You might as well just pack your own bags at that point. Come on.
To be fair, it's not like he came out and was like Chapman, which also wanted to give a shout out to
he was
Clay
a good
Holmes.
teammate and good sport about it. Yes.
Yeah, he was a good teammate. Clay Holmes has been a good teammate. Yeah, he lost the closing job. Look at what he's doing now. So, yeah, no, I agree with that. It's funny. I feel like, like Bleacher Report, they have that, what is it? Gridiron. I forget what it's like, that animated series like they made about like the NFL. It's like,
no, I didn't know.
We need one for baseball. Like you just did and it would just be like, not Rodon, Stroman getting a slingshot out of Yankee Stadium.
You know what they should do? This is my idea.
Gridiron Heights is what it's called.
Okay. Don't let anyone take this idea. And I'm surely thousands of people watch our podcast every night. So guaranteed some nerd is going to steal this idea. But here's what they should do. Instead of that cartoon that they play for Yes Network, they should have like an AI software basically cartoonize or basically make a cartoon of the game and just have a cartoon play exactly the game that happened today. That's my idea.
So instead of Bronx Buds, you want like a cartoon recreation of the game?
Yes, I want a cartoon version of exactly the baseball game. So if Giancarlo Stanton doesn't tag up on a fly ball to deep right field and just stays at second base stationary, then I want to see that in cartoon form for my daughter who's going to be growing up.
Okay. I see you. So basically what you're proposing is that you want real life backyard baseball. You want backyard baseball to be like, yeah, no, I kind of mess with that a little bit. I'm not going to lie. I kind of like that for like the younger audience.
Using like AI software with some Alvin and the Chipmunks voice over Michael K's voice. And then that's your broadcast. I'm telling you, it would work.
You're not going to go with, what's his name? Doubleday, the announcer.
Who?
From Backyard Baseball or whatever the hell his name was.
Oh.
Chip, what that? Chip Downfield?
Yeah. No, I wouldn't hate that either, but I don't know.
Yeah, hey, 'tis the season, man. They just I don't know if I should tell you this because I don't know if you're a backyard baseball fan. I'm a
huge backyard baseball fan. My dad was supposed to be in the game, and then he chose not to be. He was like, "Oh," someone asked him to be in the game, and he was just like, "Oh, I'm good." He didn't even know what it was. I was pissed.
Oh yeah, he should have been in it. But
that was a huge marketing mistake on his part.
Yeah, because Jeter, Garcia Parra, A-Rod, they were all in it. I remember that.
Right, and then obviously my dad has the most recognizable stance of all of them.
So yeah,
it would have been really easy to put him in the game. Yeah, I thought that was a misfire, in my opinion. But by the way, is it my turn to say a movie? I think you said the last movie.
Yeah, so I said Creed, and before I send it over to you, real quick on that front, Backyard Baseball 97 actually just dropped on Steam. So there's that. Apparently they're bringing it back. I'm very skeptical on that. The whole backyard sports with the new age. I don't think that's going to be very good, but who knows? And then we had field level shoutouts. We have a brand new member. Aaron Judge is my Pookie.
What are these names?
So field level too. So that means every single episode I have to say Aaron Judge is my Pookie. When I read that off, is my Pookie. Yeah, shout out to Aaron Judge is my Pookie. Yeah. So first off, shout out Ed W. Gave us a DBQ essay of a mailbag. So I'm just gonna. So what I'm gonna say is this, because obviously due to time constraints, aka us trying to finish up this podcast so I can go to bed and wake up at a decent time for my birthday. We are going to kind of bring this thing down a little bit. So basically what he was talking about was, first off, if you didn't know, there is an unconventional way to, I guess, replace Bob Costas in your living room. Bring up the MLB app and you can listen to John Sterling and Susan Waldman. So there is a way to do that. So I wanted to put that out there because he put that in the mailbag. Also talked about Michael K addressing the Costas criticism and defending him. And then he said instead he argues something similar to Gary. According to K, baseball fans are upset because baseball is a regional sport and the fans are upset that people who were ripped away from the voices that they live with for 6 months. Don LaGreca disagreed and made Jake's point. which was that they want a more animated announcer who they are more familiar with, and baseball lacks a national voice. Thought that was an interesting thing to discuss as a follow-up. Great show and love the new glasses, Jake. Thank you, Ed. Appreciate you. So I'll say this, Gary. This sport is not dying, but it's not growing as much as some of the other sports. So this is what I'll say. Bob Costas is a legend. He has got the perfect narrator voice. He's exactly what I want narrating outside the lines, 60 minutes, 30 for 30, all that, right? And he's got the voice for golf, and he's got the voice for the Olympics. But the problem, Gary, that I have not seen addressed, this is the actual issue, is that when you have baseball on in October, you have postseason baseball. Gary, let me tell you something, okay? This sport is going to pick up new fans. People don't realize that. There are new people that will turn on and they will watch Giancarlo Stanton hit a 450-foot home run. They're at their friend's house. They never watch baseball, just happen to be on. They're like, wow, that's baseball? That's pretty cool. And now with the changing the pitch clock, I think we're going to see more and more of it. The problem is Bob Costas is going to push away those new fans because they're going to listen to that and be like, this isn't as exciting. If you had Matt Vasgersian, people can feel it. Don't tell me that the announcing doesn't matter. It 100% matters. If you didn't have Jim Nantz, if you didn't have Brian Anderson, who luckily will be calling the ALCS, so I wanted to point that out. That was in our comment section. Brian Anderson's great. So you want those guys to have kind of that fire, that, whatever. If those guys weren't calling March Madness, do you think March Madness, if Bob Costas, and I mean no disrespect to him, but somebody like him that takes a lot of pauses, doesn't really, explode at the big moment, do you think March Madness would be that big of a deal, Gary, if everybody sounded like that? No. The thing that makes March Madness so crazy, the thing that makes the Super Bowl so crazy, although the Super Bowl can deal with it no matter who calls it, but the thing that makes that so crazy, like Mike Breen in a big, big spot where he goes, bang!
Mike Breen is like legendary.
Yes.
Are you kidding me?
You and I can literally just say, you might not even know who Mike Breen is watching this, but I just said bang, and the light bulb went off. And you're like, oh, I've seen Steph Curry hit a shot and have him do that before. Yes, It matters. And so that's all I'm saying. You don't have to discredit anything Bob Costas has done, but he's for the older audience. The older audience, they're like fine with him. The younger audience, as you're trying to grow this sport, America's pastime, all that, and football's on, basketball's right around the corner, NHL season just started. You have competition. You need to have guys like Matt Vasgersian, who can come out and be like, Santa Maria, and it's not like just go off, because, dude, that Giancarlo Stanton 8th inning home run was the game winner. Okay, I watched, and I understand it was a grand slam, but I watched, I think it was Adam Amin, I don't know. He's one of the football announcers on Fox. He called the Lindor grand slam. Understand, again, it was a grand slam, but that call was great. It was great. He was in the moment. He didn't talk over everything. He let it breathe, but he said his thing immediately. Wasn't too much pausing. It was enough, emphasis, like, okay, this moment is big. If I'm not reeled in, it's just weird. I told you, I mean, you had Tommy Pham had a regular base hit in the 6th inning with nobody on and 2 outs. And Bob Costas is like, and that's a base hit. And mind you, I'm streaming. I'm gaming on the other screen, and I'm watching the game as I'm streaming. And I go over and I
thought it was a big hit. Yeah.
I thought it was a big hit. I look and I'm like, so no one scored?
Nope. No one threatened. No one got in scoring position. Nobody.
And so I'm not trying to say that Bob Costas is a diehard Kansas City Royals fan, hates the Yankees. That's not even my issue. My ultimate issue is that when there are big moments in the game, there needs to be big emphasis, because you can get somebody in there that would do it. You can. Gary and I could do it. Now, would we do it as well as Bob Costas for the entirety of it? I don't know. He's been doing broadcasting for years.
I'm sure
But
Bob Costas does a better job than I would
yeah,
do.
he does.
On the
But in those
broadcast.
moments, the big moments, I think we'd do a better job. I do.
I would at least start screaming. But here's the thing. This is where I'm at. Bob Costas, from a technical standpoint, is excellent. Okay.
He is. Yes.
If there was anybody I'd want to have an audiobook of Arthur Miller's The Crucible, it would be Bob Costas. I want a soothing,
yes,
right, quiet, very distinguishable and understandable voice. There's a reason that people listen to audiobooks in the first place, right? Technically, you can just read the damn thing. You don't need an audiobook, but sometimes the delivery of a message goes a long way and helps you get through something, right? Talk about delivery. Look at the WWE. It's a bunch of grown men in spandex, and the theater, the story and delivery of what the narrators are saying is hyping everybody up to the point where it's about as exciting as anything else you'll ever watch. It's fun, right? And that's what it's supposed to be. Well, baseball is the same. This is the circus. If Giancarlo Stanton or if Francisco Lindor hits a grand slam to send his team to the World Series, I should know it based on your tone. We had more atmosphere seeing Tim Anderson hit an opposite field home run against Zach Britton into a field of corn than we did for any big home run the Yankees hit or big hit the Yankees had in this series. And that is saying everything. Okay. So that's really all we're saying here is that you need to provide energy in moments that deserve it. And then you just need to let it breathe in moments where it deserves a breath. So yeah, we appreciate that mailbag. And it really wasn't even much of a question. It was more so of a suggestion. But
well, it was hard to, it was a lot of things. So I tried to put it all together. So, but yeah, I agree. And I think there's nothing wrong with having, just expectations that you just want to have. You want to be in the moment. You want to have more emphasis and all that on a specific event in the game. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But all right. I think we got everything. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment, and follow us on all social media. Check out our Discord, become a member, all that good stuff. Gary, what's the movie?
I'm going with Pretty Woman. One of the best movies of all time. I know this is totally random. Loved this movie. I actually saw this movie for the first time maybe a year ago. My wife put me on. I didn't think it was going to be that good. Really good story. Probably not appropriate to explain what it's about if you haven't seen it. Highly recommend it. Pretty Woman.
So no connection. Damn.
Nope. No connection at all. I just saw greatest movies of all time. And I was like, Pretty Woman. That's a great movie. I want to see people type that in the chat. And I also want to see if people spell woman right.
Oh, man. That was funny.
Great movie.
Yeah, that was, man. All right. Yeah, put in Pretty Woman. Type it correctly if you can. If you got to this point in the show, of course, that's, the drill. If you're here, you've probably been here before. If you haven't, well, we do this thing where we test how long you guys have been watching. And if you got to this point in the show, yeah, put in Pretty Woman. Put in any movie that we give out for all you newbies. So appreciate the new subscribers and everything. It's been a fun journey. And we're 4 wins away. After all of this criticism, all of this hype, all of this excitement and disappointment, the best win of the year, a bunch of worst losses of the year, and we are 4 wins away from the Yankees going back to the World Series for the first time since 2009. All I can say is if it happens, well, Gary, it took 15 years, but do you know one thing that happened in between now and 2009 that, happened? If this happens this year, do you know what it is?
What is it?
Yankees unloaded.
Can you believe that?
That would be insane.
That is poetic justice. All those podcasts I don't like that involve the Yankees, and they had to cover this team for 11 years. They had to watch the team miss the playoffs. We just show up. Thing is booming. We go to the World Series. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, no, definitely.
It's that easy.
Yeah, obviously they have a lot of work to do. we have a lot of work to do because we'll be doing an episode after every single game. I do have some weddings coming up, so it's gonna be dicey, but of course we'll be able to get shows out and stuff. So yeah. Anyway, that's gonna do it. Hope you guys enjoyed, and we will see you guys in the next episode. Did you just cut me off?
Yes. What do you? I thought you were done. What do you want?
I said we will see you guys in the next episode.
Yeah, I didn't know that was coming. I almost did it the last episode as well, but yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I was pausing like Bob Costas.
Oh my gosh. Like this video.